guess what? It's firmware update day for the LUMIX S1II, S1R2, and the S1IIE. And it is kind of a significant update as well, which is why I'm here making a video. I'm slapping this together like really quickly because I've been really busy on another project. It's actually the previous video that I posted yesterday. Plus it's the holidays and I work a job. You can kind of learn more about my routine and my life in my previous video if you like. So things are just kind of busy and chaotic right now, and I'm doing my best over here, but this was an important update and I want to talk about it in a video. But if you don't know me, my name is Dustin, your video tour guide, and remember to keep your arm I messed it up. Roll the clip. Enjoy the video. One of the things that's kind of annoying about these updates is that LUMIX does them quite a bit, and it changes quite a bit of functionality on the camera, and it's hard to remember what the changes were and where to find these new changes in the menu. Well, guess what? I have a solution for you. It's my course, LUMIX Pro. Not only will I have these new updates and settings in the course to review or to learn about or past things that I've covered, there's already almost 500 students by now, but it will cover future updates as well. It's a one-time payment and it gives you access to life. And when I do this next update that will include the S1II, S1R2, S1IIE, and some of the settings on the GH7, which I'm filming on right now, I promise it's coming for some of my students that have been waiting for this next section to launch, but I'm kind of glad that it's taken me a little bit longer to finish the scripts because this new update added a lot of things that I want to add into the course as well. But I promise it is going to launch by the end of the year. And speaking of the end of the year, I'm going to give an exclusive discount until the end of the year on the course. It'll likely be 30%, which I haven't done 30% since I launched the course. And the big reason that I'm doing that discount is because the course is technically, I'm not considering complete. But once I add this next section, it will be way more complete. And don't worry, the plan after that is to also add another section on color grading and to add more specific tutorials as well that are related to settings in the camera that maybe are not directly just settings on the camera, like how to do a focus stack in like Photoshop or something like that. So check the link in the description if you're interested in joining. Again, almost 500 students now. And if you are a student, seriously, thank you. It really helps support this channel and keep me motivated to keep doing videos like these. But anyways, let's get into what you came for. The updates. And the number one thing that you are probably curious about is overheating. Now, I'm going to be totally honest. A lot of people might be thinking like, why hasn't Dustin talked about the overheating thing? Because he's like the LUMIX guy and he probably should be talking about this. Well, I haven't had either the S1R2 or the S1II, because those are the two cameras I have. I don't have the S1IIE. Neither of them have overheated on me. Now, this is likely due because a lot of the stuff I shoot now, especially since August, is pretty much exclusively in studio, or it's indoors, and or I'm only shooting like very short clips and stopping recording. For a lot of people that have wanted to record for long periods of time on these cameras outdoors in direct sunlight have encountered some issues with that. And that's really kind of too bad because LUMIX has been known as being a workhorse and very reliable when it comes to heat. So it made me a little bit sad, but it hasn't really bothered me at all. And so if you want to see specific tests, I actually didn't do any because I haven't had time and I knew somebody else would do it. I recommend you check out Matthew Dangyu's video. I'll have it linked in the description because apparently he did a bunch of tests. And I'll tell you the general consensus from what I got when I got this firmware from LUMIX was that you can see an improvement between 50 and 150%. So let's say that you were getting maybe 20 minutes of recording time in a certain recording quality. That means if you got a 50% improvement, you would get 30 minutes of recording time. If you got 100%, you would get 40 minutes. If you got 150%, then you would get 60 minutes. Now there's a lot of nuance and variance to this. This is why I don't like doing overheating tests. I just kind of use it, and if it overheats, I'd be like, hey, in this situation, it may overheat. But there were some other recording qualities as well that maybe you could record for maybe like an hour where it will just not overheat anymore. So I recommend you go watch some of those tests to get some maybe direct answers. However, there are some very important settings that you need to change on the camera in order to get the longest recording times possible on these cameras. The first one is that you need to change the fan mode, because there are fans on these cameras, to Auto 1. The default is Auto 2, which is like it's like a balanced mode where it tries to make sure that the sound of the fan is not too loud while also keeping the camera pretty cool. Auto 1 basically will prioritize cooling the camera. So let's say you're shooting indoors, you're likely not going to hear the fan. When you go outdoors, where it's probably louder and bigger open space, where the fan doesn't really matter as much, then it's going to probably kick in the fan and it's going to be a little bit louder. So that's why you need to change it to Auto 1. There's two other things you need to do as well. The other setting you need to change is you need to change the thermal management from standard to high. All this means is that the camera, while you're holding it, could get hot to the touch, basically. So this is why you change it to high, because like, I don't really mind if a camera is warm in my hand. I don't see it getting so hot that you're like, ow, I can't touch it. I've never seen that on the camera before. Maybe it could happen, but I don't see that happening. So change the thermal management to high. And two things, make sure you are using an approved CF Express Type B card from Panasonic's website. I will have a link in the description as well, so you can check out for approved cards. I use this Next Storage. That's kind of hard to say. Next. I give up. I also have a pro grade card as well, but these seem to be pretty good price and they're on the approved list, so I recommend these. So either do that, but you will get longer recording times if you just use an SD card. SD cards just don't draw as much heat as CF Express Type B cards. So there you go. That is how you get the longest record times possible on the S1II, S1IIE, and S1R2. Let's move on to the next thing, which is autofocus improvements. Yes, there is actually some very exciting things when it comes to the new autofocus settings and some autofocus improvements as well. The first one is when you've got your autofocus set to full area, maybe some other modes as well, and you have subject detection on, you'll notice, especially when there's a lot of people, there's so much going on the UI of the screen that it gets kind of confusing and just overwhelming. Well, now you can change it where there's only one frame on the subject that you want to focus on. I'll try to get an example of this before I post this tomorrow. The setting in the camera is called AF Detect Multi-Frame Display. Change that from on to off, and then it will only display the focus box on the subject that it's trying to focus on instead of showing you where it could potentially go. Another thing as well, are you a hater of the box with the crosshairs on LUMIX's autofocus? I wasn't necessarily a hater, but I didn't love it. I think it could look much cleaner like before in the analog detect mode. When it would detect the eye, it would just display a little box over the eye. Well, guess what? You can now do that in camera as well. The setting is called Human Eye Detection Display. When you click that, you want to go to Eye Detection Style and change that from the crosshair to the rectangle. And you can also use the joystick to switch between the eyes as well. This is a very welcome change in my opinion, because I just think it's cleaner and it's easier for people to see and understand that it's focusing on the eye, because sometimes when it would show that it's focused on like the face and it does like the other cross box, I don't know the frame box, it was just kind of confusing. Is it focusing on the eye or is it focusing on, it was hard to tell basically when it was changing between the two. Another thing that's been improved is that you will get subject detection when you shoot at 120 frames per second. You will also get subject detection when you shoot at 120 frames per second over HDMI. A weird little quirk though, that I don't know, I feel like could be fixed as well, is that when you're shooting an open gate at 60 or 48 FPS, you lose subject detection over HDMI. You don't lose it if you're just shooting in camera, you still get subject detection, but if you're shooting over HDMI, then yeah, you lose subject detection if you're shooting in open gate slow-mo. I don't know if that can be changed in the future, but I really just think if LUMIX can change that one day, maybe not, maybe it's not possible, but if they can change that, it'll just simplify, like, okay, I get subject detection here and I get it here, I will also get it over HDMI as well. Yeah. Now it does feel like that there's some general improvements as well. Overall with the autofocus, I don't have examples because I left my hard drive at work, but when I was shooting at 120 frames per second, for some reason the camera would have a hard time focusing on this product that I'm shooting, or it's a cookies. Basically, I shoot a lot of cookies these days and desserts. It's having a hard time focusing, and I'm just going like this, like really slow forward and backwards. It does seem that that's been improved, at least at 120 frames per second, because we just shoot everything at 120 frames per second. So seems like there's general improvement. I'm sure that there's some general improvement as well with the tracking with subject as well. But another thing that I hope that they make better as well is just the tracking mode on LUMIX. It is still just not very sticky. When you click on an object, it needs to like 99% of the time stay on that object, and it needs to be better. So I hope that they can improve that as well in future updates. Now I'm going to try and rush through a bunch of these other settings because I want to get this video done and go to sleep. We now have Anamorphic IBIS and Desqueeze at 1.6 times. So if you held on to your 1.6 times S1RII lenses, you now have Desqueeze and Anamorphic IBIS. That's actually a very welcome change. I'm stoked for it. Don't worry, I've got an update for photos as well. On the S1R II and the S1II, they added a new burst mode that is lower, basically cut in half from the burst modes that are there. So on the S1R II, it goes from, there's now a 20 FPS option on the S1R II, and on the S1II, there's also a 30 FPS mode. So you don't have to, if you don't need 60 FPS or 40 FPS on either of these cameras, you can lower the speed. That's a very welcome change. There's a new way to change between manual and auto ISO. Basically, instead of having to scroll all the way down to auto ISO, you can now set auto ISO to a function button, and you can just click the function button and it'll go straight from whatever ISO you're at to auto ISO. Nice welcome change. Speaking of ISO, there is now a new way to view your dual native ISO gates depending on which picture profile you're in. Now this is super cool. You basically have to have your dual native ISO setting set to auto. When it's set to auto, essentially when you're scrolling through your ISO values, when the color turns blue, that means you're at the first native ISO value. Then when you go up your ISO values and then the indicator turns red, that means that you're at your second native ISO. And this changes in every single picture profile. Now, I know these cameras super well, but even I can't remember what the native ISOs are on the fly. They've also added MP4 Lite on these cameras. I know we've been waiting for that for a while. That's on the other S series cameras, like I think it's on the GH7, I could be wrong, but it's on the S5II, S5IIX, those cameras. So MP4 Lite is now available on these cameras. And then lastly, there's just been some improvements in app compatibility when it comes to LUMIX Flow and LUMIX Lab. I can't remember what it's even called. All the updates that came on the recently added updates to the S5II, S5IIX, those cameras are now available on this camera, on these cameras, I mean, in the apps. So live view LUTs directly in LUMIX Flow. Hey, speaking of which, I even have LUMIX Flow going right now on my, see? You can see me on the GH7, but yeah, I'm in Arilog right now, and you can see the colors. You see the colors? You see them? So yeah, that's a very welcome change. By the way, if you're not using LUMIX Flow or even the LUMIX Lab app, you really should give it a go. So anyways, that's pretty much all I got in terms of updates now on these new cameras. If I missed any, I'm sorry. You'll probably find them in another video or just read the notes on the LUMIX's website. I'll have a link in the description too to LUMIX's website where you can download the new firmware updates. Also, if you're interested in any of these cameras, I will have affiliate links down in the description. If you use those, that really helps the channel as well. Black Friday coming out, I'm sure that there's going to be sales coming soon. So might not be a bad time to pick up one of these bad boys if you're, been holding off. New firmware update, new camera, new course, maybe, question mark? Would love to have you join. You can always support me though just by hitting the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified. future uploads. Till the next video though. Happy filming.